For
Welcome to the Ejectables, our inaugural episode where movie enthusiasts Bill, Ian, and Joe join forces with a rotating weekly guest to defend films that the critics or audience have left behind. Each episode, our panel will dive into a movie they believe has been unfairly panned or unjustly considered a flop. From cult classics to hidden gems, watch as we make our case and challenge the conventional wisdom of what makes a movie worth watching. For our inaugural episode, we're going to have our three hosts here. Welcome, Ian. Welcome, Bill, to the Ejectables.
Thanks.
I'm so excited to have you here. Ian, what is the movie that you're defending
The
tonight?
movie I am defending tonight is David Lowery's A Ghost Story.
Oh,
David Lowery, that's a big director now.
Yeah.
And this movie, The Ghost actually has a sheet over him, so that's going to be very hard to defend.
True. Should I go into it? Or
Please.
talk about?
Okay, so where did you see this movie?
I saw this movie at a cinema in Massachusetts a few years back, and then a few times at home as well.
Now, were you by yourself?
I was with my mom.
And was the theater empty?
Pretty much, yeah. I think it was. There may have been one other person in the theater.
Now, do you hate your mom? Is that what happened?
No, I love my mom. No, she's just willing to go to whatever I want to see. And I have a real job, so she was available, and my wife was not.
Okay. And what made you want to see this movie?
So like Joe said, it's this ghost, he has a sheet over him, just like the Halloween costume, with the cutout holes and stuff. I actually thought that looked appealing. It was really just the poster. And I did see, so this movie, in this case, the reviews were actually good.
Yeah.
Audience, not a lot of people dug this film. They think it's weird and slow, but I disagree.
Was it an A24 movie?
It was an A24 movie.
And who's in this movie? I've never even I remember seeing the trailer, but like I would never see that movie.
I don't think you would like it. It's Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck. And I too have a poster right here.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You're really a big fan.
I'm an addict. Yeah, no, it's one of my all-time favorite films.
And why? Why?
Because it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. It's different. I love the pacing because we're in a time when people are on their phones or watching, and no offense to the Marvel films, but it's all just so bam, bam, bam. And people are like, spoon-fed every little detail of the story. And this movie lets you think. And it sometimes makes you just sit there and watch. And I know, I had my wife watch it. I had my brother watch it. And there's one scene in the film where a lot of people give up. Should I talk about that scene?
Please.
Sure.
There's a scene in the film where Casey Affleck, he dies in a car accident. And so this couple is separated because he's dead and he's a ghost and she just thinks he's gone. So there's this scene where a realtor stops by their house and leaves a pie. So Rooney Mara comes home, she opens the pie and she's quiet. She's just lost her husband. She starts to eat the pie. Then she takes another bite of the pie and she eats some more of the pie. This goes on for about 3 minutes. Then she sits down, takes the pie and sits on the floor and eats more of the pie. She eventually eats the whole pie and then races off to the bathroom to vomit. So it's at least a 5 or 6 minute scene. And people think that's pretentious. But first time I saw it, I have to say, I thought, if the whole movie's like this, I don't know if I'm going to dig this. This is going to be a little bit too bizarre. But watching the rest of the film, I realized it was much more than that. And putting that scene within the whole, perspective of the film, it works. And it's kind of a beautiful scene and it's very moving.
What was the point of her eating the pie on the floor and then vomiting in it after? What was the point? What were they trying to convey?
Well, I think Rooney Mara is she's a very thin woman. You imagine that she doesn't normally eat so much pie. But I think what they were trying to convey is that she's in mourning and she's trying to deal with this loss and she's, not herself. And he, as the ghost, you see him in the background just watching her eat this pie.
Very interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I've heard about the pie scene as well. And it's very beautifully shot. I will say that.
Yeah.
I've seen clips. It's very, very beautifully
shot.
So
have you not seen the whole film?
I haven't. And it's only, speaking of it being quick, it's only about an hour and a half, I believe.
Yeah, it's about,
is
it's like
great.
92 minutes. And if you look on IMDb, all the reviews say it's boring. If you want to take a nap, watch this film. Even at 92 minutes, it's too long. And the movie does take its time, but it's very thoughtful. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't spoon feed you, the details of the film. It just lets you think about life and existence and loss. And for me, I always love films that deal with loss and, understanding how fleeting everything is. And for me, that's what appealed to me about
Why was he under the sheet, and how can that be justified?
Well, I think it's absurd. I agree. It's just a way of showing a ghost, and it's a way of kind of, I guess, putting him in the room without having, crazy special effects or whatever. And I think it's also, maybe it's a marketing gimmick. I don't know, because it worked for me, but it works. If you watch the film, it seems absurd that there's this guy under a sheet. It starts with him in the morgue. So I'll say he's in the morgue. She says goodbye to him. She puts the sheet over him after seeing he's dead. And
okay.
we see him sitting in the morgue, just his body. And then after, it's one of those long shots. After 2 or 3 minutes, he sits up. And he gets up, walks, and suddenly it's got the holes for the eyes, and he's under the sheet and dead. And it works. There's a sense of reality. It seems like it should be absurd, but there's this sense of groundedness in reality with this what should be goofy thing.
I see. So do they, in Ghost with Patrick Swayze, was he able to connect with his wife that he left behind, or was he just under the sheet the whole time?
There are moments when he might hit the keys on the piano and she hears it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like haunting moments. There's even there's one piece where this new family moves into the house after she's moved out, and his ghost remains in the house, and he haunts them. So he comes out of the closet, and the kids are sleeping in bed. They see the empty closet open up, and then at one part he throws dishes against the wall, and all they see is these dishes smashing on the wall. And so he scares them out of the house. So there are like haunted, ghost moments, but it's really just a drama about loss.
And he's there because he is still attached to the Earth plane and isn't ready to leave, or he's watching, why is he still there? Why hasn't he, if he's dead, transgressed, right, into another world? What's he doing there?
Well, that's it. He's his unfinished business is waiting for her. He wants her to come back, but she's left the house. Other people are coming in. And earlier on in the film, she writes a little note and she sticks it into a crack in the paint of the wall of the house. And that's sort of something they talked about early in the film. And he wants to know what that note said. And you see scenes of him trying to scratch to get at that little note, and he can't get to it. And so, spoiler alert, he does eventually get to that note. I don't know if I should tell you guys because you haven't seen it.
It's okay.
It's okay.
All right.
You're defending the movie.
He opens.
We should have a banner that says "spoiler." Let me do it real quick.
Yeah, we should have that. So he gets to a point where at the very end of the movie, and they kind of tease that there's this note in the wall the whole time. He opens the note and he goes to read it, and suddenly he disappears. And we don't know what the note said, which is kind of amazing, which I think a lot of people will be frustrated by that. And I love that we don't know. And it makes you think, what did that note say?
And you never find out?
You never find out.
Did you cry?
I was definitely moved. I don't know if I cried. There were moments where I was quite moved, almost to tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you cry?
Depends. I cry at different things sometimes.
All right. You guys need to see this movie. So yeah, I think that's my defense of it. I think it's, it's emotionally resonant, and that's what pulled me through it. And it's one of my all-time favorite films.
That's great. And he never comes back to life. So what happens?
Well, basically you see time going, and I love how they show time passing. There's a lot of spoiler alerts. You see scenes where she goes out the door to work, and you just see her walk out the door with the bag in different clothes, walks out again. It's this one montage of her leaving, and that's how you see the passage of time. And then you see, as he's trying to get this note, a wrecking ball comes in and destroys the house. And then you see he's in that same location, and then there's a building foundation there. Then there's a building there. And then he goes up in the building, and these are the things that they've destroyed the house, to build this building. And he feels so disconnected from the world, and he jumps off the building and goes all the way back in time. And now he's in the 1800s in that same land. And there's like this pioneer family. It sounds ridiculous telling it, but it actually really works. And it just kind of,
I'm going to watch it. You've convinced me.
and it spoiled the whole thing.
I'm not going to eject it.
All right.
I'm not going to eject it either.
Did I convince you not to eject it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yes!
It's only an hour and a half. So I mean, really, what do we have to lose, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if the IMDb reviewers are correct, you'll have a good nap. But they did not sit past the pie scene. Get past the pie scene. I swear, it's so good.
Okay.
Now, did you ever see Mike's Murder, Ian? That James Bridges movie with Deborah Winger? That's a movie that Joe thinks is very slow.
It's ridiculous. It's terrible. It never saw the light of day. Tarantino put it in his theater because nobody else wanted it. Probably got it for the rights for like $2 or something. It was
Do you
terrible.
recommend it, Bill?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. It was awesome.
I like a slow movie. I like a slow movie. My favorite.
It's hard to find.
I just saw this movie called Handling the Undead. You have to see it. It's very much like a ghost story. So if you like see this.
Where can you see it?
It's on. You can buy it on iTunes.
Okay.
It's a new movie from this year. It's beautiful.
All right. There you go. Another recommendation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So who's next?
Well, I'll be next. I'm going to talk to you about one of my non-ejectable movies for sure. It's called The Bedroom Window from 1987.
Oh.
And this movie was really, really great. It actually stars Steve Guttenberg as Terry Lambert, and he's sleeping with this woman, Sylvia, Isabelle Huppert, the scene chomping Isabelle Huppert. She's French, and she's very dramatic. I love it. And she's the wife of his boss. And one night, while she's in Terry's apartment, she witnesses a murder from his bedroom window. And an assault from his bedroom window. And she gets all nervous about it. And she tells Terry, Steve Guttenberg, and she can't go to the police about it, right? Because she recognized the assailant because she was in Steve Guttenberg's house when she wasn't supposed to be there because she's having an affair with him. And the next day, apparently there's other murders that are taking place, other attacks. So they feel compelled, Steve Guttenberg's character and the Isabelle Huppert character, they feel compelled to go to the police, but Steve Guttenberg has to be the one that goes to the police, tells them about the guy, and he didn't see the guy. So he's having to essentially speak on behalf of the Huppert character. And essentially what winds up happening is that he is so arrogant. Number one, he's really, really arrogant because he's sleeping with his wife, with his boss's wife. Like he's so cavalier about it. He's into the office. He's like, after he slept with her, he's talking to his boss. A lot of arrogance, right? But he's still this super nice guy. He's still Steve Guttenberg, right? But then he gets even more arrogant by thinking that he can lie to the police, and he thinks it's just going to be a quick phone call. I saw the guy. He looked like this. Of course, they call him in for questioning. They have him do a lineup. He doesn't have the confidence to point out the guy because he hasn't seen him. She has cold feet, the woman he's sleeping with. And the best part, really, I think, is Elizabeth McGovern, who was the woman who was attacked that night that the Huppert character saw her being attacked from his bedroom window. And she catches on to the Steve Guttenberg's character, knowing that he didn't actually see the assailant. So what winds up happening is they connect, and they have no choice but to try and catch the assailant by themselves, putting themselves in a very risky situation. And I think it's a phenomenal flick. It's one of my favorite movies, I have to say. Probably one of my favorite top 20 movies, definitely.
I watched that movie because I knew we were doing this.
Yeah.
And if my Apple TV could eject, it would not have lasted inside my Apple TV. So I watched the whole thing.
Are you saying that you would have ejected it or you would not have ejected it?
I thought it was, no offense to you,
It's okay.
It was really bad.
How is it bad?
First of all, the miscasting of Steve Guttenberg.
He was
Well, he's
perfect in this.
He's playing against type, right?
No,
but he's
well,
exactly the same.
except he's arrogant in this, but in still like it's almost not even arrogance. It's almost naivete. Do you know?
Well, he's playing against type because he's such the good guy in all the movies.
Well, he's still the good guy. They're way too good. He's doing a good deed by putting himself in harm's way by talking to the police about the assailant. But okay, so why didn't you like this, Ian? What was possibly wrong with this in your brain?
Well, it's hard for me because I did not see it back in the day. So
Okay.
Well, there's a reason why.
You think?
Yeah, it was a big bomb.
Well, because when we get to your movie, I didn't feel quite as harshly about it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I also watched that. The chemistry between Steve Guttenberg and Huppert, I forget her first name.
Isabelle, yeah.
They have no chemistry. They're super clunky. Their scenes are so awkward. And then he just doesn't care about anything. They're super passionate in their relationship, and their dialogues is so unbelievable. And then, I'm going to do spoiler alert. Are you ready?
Hold on a second.
Okay. She gets murdered at the opera.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. He just doesn't care. And then Elizabeth McGovern, who had just been, nearly raped earlier in the film, he goes to her house. Steve Guttenberg goes to Elizabeth McGovern's house after the death of the character I just mentioned in the spoiler time. And she lets him stay there. And then she comes on to him like, "Ooh, I was almost, sexually assaulted earlier in the film, but hey, I feel really hot for you right now. This guy who may have witnessed my attempted assault." But and this is the night after his lover was just murdered.
Well, a few things, Ian. I just want to comment on a few things that you said.
Yeah.
Number one, the fact that he and the Huppert character didn't have chemistry and they were somewhat clunky. I think that was perhaps intentional because it sets the way for him to be with the Elizabeth McGovern character, who's way more likable, and she's the heroine of the film. So we're not supposed to really like the Huppert character for good reason. She's very scene chomping. She's very haughty. She lies. Ostensibly because she did recognize him. So I can understand why they were clunky and they didn't have much chemistry. I think if they had more chemistry than him and Elizabeth McGovern, it wouldn't have worked.
The courtroom scene. Can I just mention that? The courtroom
Love that.
Scene. Oh my God. She's like going, oh yeah. All right. She's like on the side. Okay, so he wears contact lenses. They're like, how did you witness this assault if you wear contact lenses, but you didn't have them in because it happened at 2 a.m? And they're like, okay, we're going to stand in the back of the courtroom, turn off the lights, and we're going to show you this thing. And if you can identify it, then okay, you see fine without your contacts. Meanwhile, Isabelle Huppert, she's sitting there in the courtroom going, red book. It's so ridiculous.
I love that. I love the lawyer in that, especially that little guy. He was perfect.
That was great to see him in that role. Yeah. What's his name? Yeah. Wallace Shawn. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Now, do you like it because it's campy or because it's good, Joe?
I love everything about it. I thought they did a great job, especially at the end. Like there were so many complications, and I think they ramped it up. But to go back to Ian's point, the whole thing with him and Elizabeth McGovern, you got to remember they had to get together. But she says to him, "Since the assault, I haven't been able to get off on my own. I need your help," because she's been so traumatized by the assault.
Can you imagine?
Well, it's the 80s.
I have imagined. I have watched the film.
It's crazy.
I thought it was okay. They had to have sex. They had to consummate the relationship. And I think that she made a good case that she's too nervous. She needs a strong man. Remember, this is 87. She needs a strong man around in order to feel comfortable.
And that's Steve Guttenberg.
That's Steve Guttenberg. But what I didn't like, though,
this is not one of them.
What I didn't like, though, is that I felt bad for her because she's like, will you come into my bedroom? And he's sleeping on her couch because, as you say, the woman he's having an affair with was just murdered, fell in his arms, right? Blood all over him.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. But the thing is that bothered me that she wanted him to come to her room and he doesn't. What's very interesting is like a interesting psychological thing there in which we get more of a glimpse of his intimacy issues, perhaps because he was having an affair with this married woman. So he won't go to her room. He tells her, come here. And they essentially have sex on the couch he's sleeping on in her apartment. So I thought that was very like real to life. And I thought that was really well done. Did you think that they shouldn't have slept together?
It just seemed how is he that relaxed? I mean, no, not to get personal, but I would not be that relaxed if the cops thought I had murdered my ex and she is not even my ex, is still his lover. Yeah. And so, okay, my lover's dead. The cops think I did it. And here I am hiding out in this assault victim's house. Oh, let's have sex. I'm turned on now.
Well, they do say that there's a very, very strong link between sex and death, i.e. people after funerals get very turned on for whatever reason.
Okay.
You've heard of that, right?
No.
Never.
Oh, it's very true. Yeah, no, there's a very, very strong link. Yeah. People after funerals like having sex.
Yeah.
But I understand your point. It is a little odd. I think that you're right there, Ian. I think that you're right, that he was a little bit too cavalier. He was like laying on the couch just like this, like, come here, girl.
How about the fight in the phone booth?
That was awesome. I love that. That was good. I thought that was awesome. So there's a scene in which this guy, and he's like this real like blue collar, rough around the edges character. He's on the phone. Probably doesn't. I don't know why he's on the phone in the phone booth, but the Steve Guttenberg character is really polite at first. Like, I need to make a phone call, and the guy's like, "Fuck off!" Right?
And it's like an emergency phone call. He needs the phone booth, but he's sort of like, "Oh, excuse me, if you have a moment."
Right. And then he gets more and more upset. And then the guy gets really upset. He asserts himself. He winds up breaking the phone in the phone booth, and they have at it. And then the cops come, and that obviously hurts his timeline.
They're like rolling on the ground, like back and forth. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Bill, did you not like it either?
I felt like I felt it was a little campy. I felt like Steve Guttenberg was playing against type. And in terms of sex symbol, I don't really see Steve Guttenberg being a sex symbol.
Oh, I think he definitely showed up as a sex symbol in this, which is another thing that I liked because I remember him mostly from, I think he was in Cocoon, Police Academy. And I think that this did bring him a much more sexier role. I think that he was always like, good looking. He was always
he was trying to do it, but it didn't work. Nobody saw it, you know.
And I remember the one after, right? Did he do anything after? There was nothing.
Just comedian, just comedies like Three Men and a Little Lady and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, his body makes him quite the sex symbol because you see some really good shots of him throughout the flick, which I appreciated a lot. But I thought you see his butt, but great body. He's a really excellent body. But in any case, I thought that they did a good job sexualizing him because, as you say, Bill, he really isn't that kind of a sexy character. But there's something I think perhaps too likable or nice about him that keeps him from being a sex symbol. Like he's certainly not Brad Pitt level, right? Or even Leonardo level. But what do you think kept him from becoming that leading man character? He
has no depth. He has zero.
Okay, fair enough, Ian. Fair enough. He can be very shallow, no depth.
I like it. He's very likable, but not in this
simple.
Film.
Very simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Given the dramatics of what he was going through in this film, not at any point did you feel he was going through what he was going through.
You raised some very good points, Ian. You raised some very good points. Still, I would recommend The Bedroom Window, 1987, starring Steve Guttenberg and Elizabeth McGovern. Bill, what do you have for us?
So I have 1990s She-Devil.
Oh, my goodness.
Directed by Susan Seidelman. It was near the end of Orion Pictures. It was a high-budget movie. Everyone was expected it to be pretty big. It flopped so badly. It's considered one of the worst movies of all time. And I gotta say, it's a pretty fun romp. Definitely ahead of his time in terms of women empowerment. It's very well directed. Meryl Streep, it was like her first comedy. It was before death becomes her, and she was really stretching her legs. Roseanne Barr, I know she's pretty toxic now, but she was pretty good in it. You know, she makes Steve Guttenberg look like Laurence Olivier with her depth. And then I think it's written by the people that wrote Married to the Mob, so I think they had a deal with Ed Orion, shot on the East Coast. The only issue is Ed Begley Jr. as the Lothario. You know, maybe I would have cast someone a little bit different. Even though in Hollywood circles he's known as one of the nicest guys ever. And the movie is about a woman, scorned, who takes revenge on the woman that stole her family and stole her husband. She's tired of being picked on. She decides her husband, right before the end of the second act, talks about everything. There are 5 things that a man wants. One of them is family, home, career. Those are the 3 things she really attacks. So she methodically destroys his life. She blows up his
right. What did she call it? I think she called it five assets or
yes, yeah. What a man covets.
So it wasn't specific to her husband. It was all men. It wasn't specific to him.
Yeah, he's yelling at her because he had his parents over, and she accidentally boiled a rat in the soup, and she goes crazy. And we learned that he got her pregnant in high school, and he was forced to marry her, and that's why he's not really in love with her. But he's just a cheater. And what happens is that she goes on a mission to destroy everything that he covets in the world. There's a crazy shot of her walking. It's so like blue screen projected. It's so campy.
You just showed that shot at the beginning.
Yeah, it's glorious how fake it is. And there's a great crane. It's so awesome. And there's an amazing crane shot in the middle of the night where she's screaming, and the camera with which it's all practical camera work because it's before CGI, zooms in on her. Susan Seidelman did an awesome job. She just deserved to direct more movies like that, but I guess at the time the results were pretty bad. You know, she did Desperately Seeking Susan, and this was like her first big budget movie, I think. And
I didn't hate it.
You didn't hate it?
I didn't hate it. And no offense to your film, and but it's a film I never saw back in its day.
Yeah.
I was resistant to it because it was Roseanne Barr and a big comedy. I was a little disappointed because I watched it last night that there was no actual devil. Devil did not play. There was no, I was expecting, she turns.
No, she becomes a she-devil, like a woman scorned. Hell has no, whatever that quote is. Yeah.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Yeah, that's the whole concept.
It would get like death becomes her, it kind of, but supernatural. But it's a cute movie. My problem with it, and I don't know if you agree, it doesn't really elevate. It kind of stays at this one level all the way along, which is totally fine, but absolutely forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, people just hated it. I mean, it was such a bomb. Meryl Streep, I think, was embarrassed by it and stuff like that. And I think that there's a second act where she has her own staffing company that people were like, all right, I thought this would be more about revenge and less about her doing a staffing company and stuff like that.
Yeah, it didn't. I thought it would kind of amp up and get more and more intense. And it was just sort of like, oh, okay, the staffing company. Oh, the kid, she dropped the kids off with him. And I'm like, okay, that's cute. Meryl Streep, I thought was great.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
They had great chemistry.
Yeah.
And there's such great lines like love in the rent cycle, the name of her book and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill. I thought it was. I loved She-Devil. I think it's great. I thought Roseanne Barr was amazing. So was Meryl Streep. The male character, Ed Begley Jr.?
Ed Begley Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought it was all. It was beautiful. It was a hysterical film. I love how they essentially make this very, I think, especially back then, this very relatable, or even now, housewife character, the heroine, because typically you're not going to have somebody who, and that's very true to life. I think that women at a certain point, if they're married and they're being neglected, they might let themselves go. And there's always this other younger woman, or I don't know, with Meryl Streep's character, she's just, more beautiful or whatever. She's not younger. But I feel like it was very, very easy for people to relate to it, much more than typical films, even though they're obviously making a mockery of it. I think they highlighted some really strong issues because I feel like that's a very common thing that, the guy just gets sick of his wife at a certain point and his eyes start to wander. And the fact that she was just such a big deal, the Meryl Streep character, I thought made it even more funny.
Now, Ian, do you think that he was a crook before he met Meryl Streep, or he was always a crook?
I think he was always a crook, just like he goes on to cheat on Meryl Streep with other women.
Oh, yeah.
In every
Crook.
way, he was just not a good guy.
He also was an embezzler. Yeah, stealing
he
money.
was.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he goes to jail for that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now,
That's
did
how
she
he
get
loses.
any alimony or anything?
No, she destroys everything. She leaves him with the kids, destroys the house, and she's on her own. And there's a crazy joke where they think that he's not going to go to jail because the judge is the golfing buddies with the defense attorney, and then they get someone who's of African American descent and a woman, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to prison." That was a joke they could do in 1990.
Oh, jeez.
The grandma from Family Matters, I think. Yeah.
It's
I
not
thought it was
an awful
great.
movie.
Yeah.
No, it's well done. So Meryl Streep regrets doing it, almost like
She?
I think so. I mean, it was such a disaster, guys. I mean, Roseanne was coming off the show. I was coming off her show. It was supposed to be such a big hit, and it was considered like one of the worst movies of the beginning of the 90s.
The writing
it was
was pretty
great.
sharp, and the three actors. I was resistant to watch it because of Roseanne Barr as of late. But
Yeah.
I forgot how charming and how good she was. At first, I'm like, oh, she does not compare to Meryl Streep, of course.
Yeah.
But she held her own in that film.
oh,
and the-
absolutely.
Yeah,
And the grandma was hilarious. Meryl Streep's mother was so funny.
she was great.
And
Yeah.
the song "Devil in Disguise" by Elvis was just perfect.
Yeah. That's how they end the movie. Definitely all Long Island sets. It's great, like settings and stuff like that. I love that. Definitely, she's definitely an East Coast filmmaker.
Go East Coast.
There you go.
East Coast. So yeah, we're gonna have to do a rewatch of She Devil, and Bill recommends it. I certainly do, and Ian, it sounds like you do too.
I do. If I had to, no offense to yours again, if I had to choose one or the other, it would be She Devil.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm going to see the Ghost Story, and I'll report back to you of my feeling. I think I'm going to like it, especially if it's only an hour and 32 minutes.
One thing we didn't mention about yours is Curtis Hanson directed it.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Whoa.
Curtis
Yeah.
Hanson.
Whoa, he directed The Bedroom Window?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I thought it would be better, and that's why I chose to watch that first because of that. And I like the
Whoa, because he did that Tom Cruise movie, Losing It, also.
Oh,
He's had such a crazy career.
LA Confidential and the Eminem movie. Yeah.
And then River Wild when we were in Boston. Yeah.
He got better.
Yes, he did. In Her Shoes, a great movie.
Wow.
Oh, I never saw that.
I think he did a great job with The Bedroom Window, for sure. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad we went over our movies, guys. We're gonna have to do this again and talk about our next flicks, and we'll find out more about the nuances about what you liked about these films in some future updates that we'll be sending across our socials. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Awesome. All right. You guys stick around. Bye, everybody.